I literally developed what's called frozen shoulder. After a couple months, I was in so much pain. I couldn't sleep. Picture driving a 10-pound nail into your shoulder joint. There's really only one way to solve this. I didn't understand the price you pay for that trauma. There's a physical price to pay.
You've now read how many scientific papers?
Oh, at least 10,000. Yeah.
Welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast, presented by Jigsaw Health, where we share health horror stories that inspire. Today's guest is Morley Robbins. Morley's personal health journey began with a frozen shoulder that put his life on pause until he was able to identify and treat the root cause. His struggles igniting his passion to help others not settle for treating symptoms, but discovering the root cause of their own conditions.
Before we dive in, just a quick note. This podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for medical advice. So please always consult a healthcare professional before making any changes to your daily health routine.
This is the Rock Bottom Podcast.
Morley Robbins, welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast. It's such an honor to have you here with us today.
Well, it's a real treat to be back. It's like, this is where it all began, right?
At Jigsaw Health, that's right.
Many
Here at the
moons ago.
headquarters.
I remember the strip and all the meetings we had and the
Yep.
movies we did.
Well, Morley, you get name checked on this show quite a bit because you are the creator of the Root Cause Protocol. You and I met about 15 years ago when you kind of just randomly called into Jigsaw Health one day and were saying, hey, I need a magnesium that doesn't cause diarrhea. Do you know anything about that? And we had, this now long-standing relationship.
And you even had toilet paper that said that.
That's right.
Well, what did the toilet paper actually say?
Yeah.
Finally, a magnesium supplement that doesn't cause diarrhea. We you not.
That's right.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah, Corey, bleep that part out.
I seem to recall that there was a roll of toilet paper that you used to wear at conferences.
Well, that was when we really upped our game.
Exactly.
Life-sized toilet paper,
That's
a.k.a. Patrick Sullivan.
That's right. Exactly.
We'll do about anything for attention.
I know, right?
That's right. And getting attention is hard. It is. But you can't sell your message unless you get attention.
Exactly.
So, Morley, I'm so happy to have you here on the show. As I was mentioning, you do get name checked on this show a lot.
Right.
And you have been on 50 plus or more podcasts. You're a prolific podcast.
350.
Oh, 350. What am I thinking?
You missed the 3.
Yeah, I missed the 3. So you are a prolific guest
Yes.
on podcasts, and you often talk about the stops and the starts of the Root Cause Protocol, which everyone, you can find that at rcp123.org.
Right?
rcp123.org, or just Google the Root Cause Protocol and you'll find it.
That's right.
The handbook is available for free for anybody to download.
And then we have what's called a starter guide now. That's 11 pages, very tight, gets people right on the ramp of recovery. if you
Good.
will. Yeah.
Well, no one really gets into the wellness game without having a story themselves.
Right.
And that is what we're here to talk to you about today on the Rock Bottom Podcast. So
Awesome.
Take us back to your frozen shoulder, your rock bottom moment.
Can I remember that far back? So, spent 12 years as a hospital executive.
What does that mean, by the way? Hospital executive. What was your job?
I was working in hospitals and hospital systems, and my focus was on business development,
Okay.
on growth, making them bigger and better. Hopefully better.
Emphasis on batter?
Yeah, hopefully better.
And when was this? Was this 80s, 90s, 2000s?
So I graduated from college in '03. No, it was '74 when I got out of college, and got my business degree in '77. So when I came out, it was a very wild time, and was living in the Washington D.C. area, and got the job of my dreams. There was Arlington Memorial Hospital. This is sweet justice. I was their very first director of planning and marketing, and they started in 1944. I show up in '77, had 33 years of data to play with. I'm a little bit of a geek, and I just went crazy with that. And those were three 3.5 of the most important years of my career, just getting established and getting connected. It's so funny. I was recently talking to my oldest son, Matt, who's also a hospital consultant. And he was talking about a meeting he was going to. I said, so we're like, where are you working these days? So he said, well, I got this board meeting in Arlington. I said, Arlington Memorial? He goes, you know that? I said, come on, Matt. I mean, I created that. And he said, I've been looking for you on the board. I don't see you there, man.
They couldn't find any photos?
No, right?
What the heck?
No, but we both got quite a chuckle out of that.
So in the 70s, you started to establish
Late
yourself.
70s.
Late 70s.
Late 70s.
As a hospital
Executive. And then made a switch to consulting after about 12 years. Was working for bigger organizations. Ended up in Catholic Healthcare West out in California. Before I got into consulting, it was a very conscious decision. I remember meeting with a career counselor over a 6-month process. He said, gosh, you've got the perfect personality to be a career counselor. I said, nah, I don't think I want to do that. He said, well, you really would be a great consultant. And so as fate would have it, the firm that I ended up working with was doing a project for Catholic Healthcare West. And I got a chance to meet with the then president, Jerry McManus, who was a legendary figure in hospital consulting. He was a former Navy test pilot. A friend of his used to be in the White House, a guy named Jack Kennedy, very well connected. And so we're going out to dinner, that fateful, do I want to hire you dinner? And I'm feeling kind of cocky. Like, why am I trying to impress this guy? Like, he had credentials coming out the yin yang. And I said, well, tell me, Jerry, give me a project that you've worked on that might capture my imagination. He said, okay. He was very good-natured. He should have just smacked me in the face, but he didn't. And he said, you remember when Jack Kennedy said he wanted to go to the moon? And I went, uh-huh. And I put my fork down because I thought, this is going to be momentous. He said, I'm the guy that redesigned NASA to make that happen. I went,
Wow.
oh, okay. Okay, I'm impressed. Can I have a job? So we actually hit it off. He was very, very excited to meet me. And I ended up joining the firm and then worked for McManus Associates for 10 years. Yeah. 10 of the 20 years I did consulting, yeah. I worked for that firm based in D.C. And they wanted me to fly back and be in D.C. for a year. And then they said, we don't care where you live. So I did that and then ended up going back to the Chicago area and doing a lot of work for them. Traveled all over the country. And then worked for subsequent firms after I did my tour of duty there. And it was very heady stuff. I mean, I worked on projects at Mayo Clinic. I've met CEOs of billion-dollar corporations who are on hospital boards, and they're fascinating people to get to know. And so all the while, I'm solving bigger and bigger problems and traveling more and more, spending a lot of time on the road, and pulling a suitcase behind my back, which after a while, the body says, we're done.
Right.
And so I literally developed what's called frozen shoulder.
How old were you?
Oh, geez. Early 50s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frozen shoulder. What is that?
Well, if you get into the real bowels of it, it's actually an estrogen problem. Believe it or not, it's a hormone problem that shows up in the shoulder joint. I'm not quite sure why. But when I first presented, I did what any smart person would do. I ignored it, which wasn't the good thing to do. Then as it progressed, I met with surgeons. They wanted to operate. I didn't think that was the answer. And then went to a health food store in the Chicago area that I had frequented for many years and said, what do you have for a frozen shoulder? And they said, oh, you need to go see Dr. Liz. Well, I knew, having spent 30 years in allopathic land, I knew that when you put the word doctor in front of a first name, that meant chiropractor, which meant witch doctor. And I said, I don't do witchcraft. And they went, okay. And I said, do you have any supplements you could sell me? And so they sold me some supplements, which did no good.
Yeah.
After a couple months, I was in so much pain. I couldn't sleep. I mean, it's like picture driving a 10-pound nail into your shoulder joint. Oof.
And it's just like that nonstop. There's
nonstop. It's like a toothache. It's just a giant toothache. And
Did you try any like painkillers? And
no, I wouldn't do that.
Just you being the hospital
guy that I was, right?
You're like, no, I don't want the stuff that we sell.
Right. No, exactly.
That's
right?
interesting.
Yeah.
Which kind of is actually maybe some good foreshadowing of what you have become now and your, the back nine.
Yeah, I knew intuitively it wasn't the answer.
It wasn't a painkiller. Like the painkiller might help to
mask.
It's not going to solve the root cause, Patrick.
Nice foreshadowing, Ash.
Okay.
So I go back to the health food store. And as fate would have it, the owner was there. Lynn Bednar was there. It's called Walsh Apothecary. Great little store in Evanston, Illinois, for those of you who are looking for a good apothecary.
All right.
And I went to Lynn. I said, you must have something stronger. She looks me in the eye. She says, Morley, we love you. Go see Dr. Liz. So I make the appointment. Now, what you have to understand is that Dr. Liz's office was the size of the studio.
Yeah.
And she had 9 tables in it. And she was doing what was called network chiropractic, where you had a network of clients healing each other, in which you would work on each client individually. And that energy and the vibe that was being given off was helping all the other clients. It was very right out there, but it really works. It's amazing. So I went from no belief in chiropractic to this transformational experience. And when she realized the problem, she said, well, there's really only one way to solve this. And I'm like, okay. And it turns out there's a muscle in here in the TMJ joint called the pterygoid muscle. It's a little tiny muscle that controls the shoulder joint.
No way.
Pterygoid.
From your face.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Tergoid.
Okay.
Pterygoid. And she knew that if she put the full weight of her body on that muscle, it was rock hard. As she pushed on that muscle, what chiropractors understand is the importance of meeting like with like. So if a muscle is really tight, they put a lot of pressure on it. As it starts to relax, they start to ease off and ease off and ease off. And as she did that, my arm lifted. I mean, it was
instant.
It was instant. It was like a miracle.
Wow.
And it's as close to a miracle as I ever want to get, right?
Yeah.
And so she and I were talking about that experience. And she used a phrase I'd never heard in 32 years of working in hospitals. She talked about the innate healer, the healer within. And I remember looking at her thinking, I didn't say anything. I thought, if there's an innate healer, why do we have millions of doctors? That didn't make sense to me. And so what I vowed in that moment was, I'm going to find out who the innate healer is. I really wanted to know. And it's been a long journey, as you know, and you're very much a part of the key parts of the journey. But it really comes down to it's minerals, but I think it's copper is the ultimate driver of energy, of balance in the body, of the immune system. And we can go into however deep you want to go, but the point is, it's like we had this divine contract, and she introduced me to this concept of natural healing, but this innate healer. And I remember going back the next day, and so she starts you out face down, and then you go sunny side up. And as I look up at her, she's looking down at me. She had flames in her eyes. I mean, almost half an inch flames in her eyes. And I'm looking for the seatbelt because what is going on here? And that was when I knew at that moment that there was a very special connection between us. And then, kind of the friendship flourished, and then we became partners and now married, husband and wife. So
wow. So the spark, literally flames in her eyes.
Exactly.
Was undeniable.
I'd never witnessed anything like it in my life.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah. So, and that was the second adjustment.
That was so you got adjust. I was going to ask that question. You were only adjusted
a couple times.
2 times.
Yeah.
And it never came back.
Never came back. No. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I've learned to ask based on my conversations with you is, what was happening right before this traumatic health event?
A torturous divorce.
So a little stress.
So you were going through a torturous divorce.
I was going through a lot of stress.
So you were traveling. You mentioned, you kind of alluded
Yep.
to, I was pulling a suitcase.
Right.
And you were traveling and working hard, but the real emotional element was you were going through a torturous divorce.
I was destined to go through this molting process that I never expected. You would not in your right mind say, "Oh, please take everything I know away. Let me start over."
No.
And it was like there were some very scary moments. I was sharing with Sheila that first Thanksgiving without the family. And you're there alone, and a friend invites you over. "Oh, here, come join my family," and you don't fit in, and it was a really weird space. But looking back on it, it was the best thing that could have happened. It forces you to rethink, and if people who follow me, especially on Facebook, you've seen my picture of me jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, right?
Yep.
That was me getting rid of cobwebs.
Yeah.
With the part that people don't realize is, you have to count the number of arms I have in that picture, and I've got 3 arms. There's a tandem jumper behind me. Yeah. I mean, I do foolish things, but with calculation.
That's right.
And so it's a great story. We're flying up on the plane, and literally the name of the company was I jumped from a perfectly good airplane.com. And we're getting up to 3 miles high. So you're at like
15,000 feet.
Yeah. And the earth is starting to get small, right? And there are a whole bunch of people going for their first jump, and there's tandem jumpers there. And my tandem jumper says, "Okay, so when I tap you on your shoulder, you pull the ripcord, right?" I said, "Yeah, relax, don't worry." He said, "When I tap you on your altimeter, you're going to pull the ripcord, right?" I said, "Relax, I got it under control." He said, "I just want to make sure. Shoulder, altimeter, got it?" I said, "Yeah." Right. So have you ever jumped out of an airplane?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I have not.
Okay. So when you get to that moment, you go, "Oh, am I really going to do this?"
Yeah.
You hesitate. He thought I wasn't going to jump. I said, "Oh, no." And then I jumped out. He's right there with me. Oh my gosh, it was the most amazing feeling in the world. And you're coming down 186 feet per second. And suddenly he's tapping me on the shoulder. And he's tapping me on the altimeter. And then I hear this, "God damn it." And I had to reach around to grab the ripcord. And so he opens up.
What were you doing?
I was having the time of my life. This is...
Not for long if you just don't pull the cord.
And what's amazing about the parachutes today is you can come in for literally a 2-point landing. You just the precision of these new parachutes is amazing. And we slide in, and he goes, "I thought you were going to pull the ripcord." I said, "Are you kidding? I was having so much fun." This guy had done like 10,000 jumps. He knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Why'd you go through that harangue? Like, you knew you were going to have to pull the ripcord.
That's right.
But that was the most amazing experience because it just all the cobwebs left, and it brought clarity. I was supposed to do something different. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And then I started volunteering. I was Dr. Liz's Girl Friday for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I dropped out of the world of hospital consulting, and I literally sat at the front desk, checked people in, checked them out. But I said, "Do you mind if I read?" She goes, "As long as you keep people flowing, I don't care what you do." And that's when I started doing the deeper dive and started reading the books and started reading the articles. And it was one of those moments when I said, we've got to find a better form of magnesium, and got on the horn. And that's when we started our exchange.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Jigsaw Health, this is Patrick. How can I help you? Well, this is Morley calling from Chicago, and I want to ask you about your MAG SRT.
Yeah.
All right, I want to go back to, because I think this is a good, it's an eye-opening moment for probably a lot of the audience where You, Morley, were the first to tell me about how really it's that stressor, the big event stressors,
Oh.
whether it's a divorce, a breakup, a death in the family,
Right. Lose your job. Right.
that really causes so much stress on the body. And if you're deficient in a specific mineral, then what happens?
Right. Well, let me add just one more twist to what was going on in the background.
Yeah.
So, doing my consulting thing, and one of my longstanding consulting friends, CEO in all over the country, but he was in Denver for many years, and then he landed this primo job. He was in charge of 52 hospitals based out of the Detroit area. And he talked me into leaving the world of consulting to become his senior VP for planning and marketing. I'm like, you sure you want me to do that? Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm making obscene amounts of money. It's staggering what kind of funds flow through a $3 billion a year corporation. And so I was there for a couple of years doing my thing, did a major strategic plan. So there were 52 operating units. So you had 52 CEOs you had to put up with. And people were like, how are you going to manage this? And I said, with one question. How do we get to the next level? Because when you're 3 billion, you want to be 5 billion. And so we asked that one question of 52 CEOs, what's it going to take to get to the next level? And that drove a year-long planning process. It was very, very successful. And life goes on. And then you find out that after you've done the fun part, you have to live with it. And I'm not good with that. That's not my thing. I'm always looking for the next new idea, next hill to climb. And a very long story short, I get whacked. And so,
Which came first, the whacking or the divorce?
The whacking, which then led to the divorce.
Oh, okay.
And so,
Dang, so total loss of business identity.
right,
Now loss of family identity.
right. And I'm going through this. I'm aware that I'm meant to change.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like I read it. I could feel it. I was supposed to become something different, do something different. And that takes a lot of courage to step out of a very comfortable situation, 25-year marriage, 4 kids. I mean, but I knew I couldn't become who I was supposed to be if I didn't make that change. And looking back on it, it makes perfect sense looking back. In the moment, it's the scariest experience you ever want to go through.
It's like you're free falling, right?
You are. It was exactly right. And I didn't have a tandem. Well, actually, I did have a tandem. But at the time, I didn't know there was a tandem. And so the thing is, you go through that experience and you realize that there is life after death, that you can reinvent yourself. You can find the deeper part of yourself. And then you become your true person. You become this true identity. You're much truer to who you are. And I allowed myself to go through that. I would encourage anyone to go through it, but just know it sucks. There's parts of it that are really uncomfortable. I don't think there's any way you can sugarcoat the experience. No. And I knew I needed to go through this, and there was a lot of trauma. And I didn't understand the price you pay for that trauma. There's a physical price to pay. So I wasn't getting good sleep. The shoulder was a problem. And it's just, I didn't have any major ailments. I didn't have heart disease or high blood pressure by the grace of God and all this other stuff. But I was in my early 50s and knew I wasn't going to live forever. And as I started working with Dr. Liz, I started researching more, reading more. And it was one of her clients who said, you really ought to write about what you're researching. And you ought to use this concept of paradoxical intent. I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, it's reverse psychology. And so I did a whole series of books, little tiny books. The first book was this big. It's called Let's Get Fat. And it was a 10-step plan. Then I wrote a book, Let's Break Bones. And then the real successful was, let's make a heart attack. And it was a 10-step plan. And what was fun about the 10-step plan was that 7 of the 10 steps came from the American Heart Association. And I was able to prove through the research that what they were recommending was causing heart attacks. It's like, okay. And so I was sharing it with a colleague. One of her patients was a practitioner. And she said, this is very funny. She says, very well researched. She says, it really deserves to be published. She said, but I can't help but think that step number 8 isn't more important than you think it is. Well, step number 8 was stop taking magnesium. Remove magnesium from your diet. And I thought, that's a great idea. And I ordered Carolyn Dean's book, The Magnesium Miracle, from that conversation. And we were coming back from a wedding in North Carolina, driving back to Chicago. And I'm reading that book like it was a murder mystery. And I'm like, now I know why everyone was so sick in the hospital. And that was what inspired you to tell me, you're the magnesium man.
Yeah.
And that's where that all got started, was that concept of writing the article about heart disease. Oh, step number 8 is really important. And I've never looked back. And for some reason, I just decided to make it a daily part of my routine to research.
And you've now read how many scientific papers?
Oh, at least 10,000. Yeah.
Wow. I have not read one scientific paper.
And this is not the summaries. This is like the actual full paper.
Right.
And then you find often the next paper that you're going to read based on the footnotes of the paper that you're reading, right? It just kind of takes you deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole.
Absolutely. And I think Dr. Liz meant this as a compliment, but she said, you're the only person I've ever known who reads the footnotes to the footnotes.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So going back to a point that I was saying with regards to the stress that occurs, if you look back, if you're suffering with something, you can often pinpoint to a stressor, a major stressor. But you, Morley, have explained, here's what happens during that stressor. Could you lay it out for our audience now?
Yeah.
When your body's under stress, what's actually happening metabolically?
Right. How much time have we got?
Well, do the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So people actually pay attention. Is that what you-
Yes.
Okay. No. When we're under stress, we lose minerals. That's the headlines.
Why do
know
we
that.
lose those minerals?
All right. Okay.
We lose them or we use them?
Good question. In magnesium, we lose them. With copper, we lose them. Yeah. So let me explain what's going on. So there are a series of enzymes in our body called kinase enzymes, and they all have ATP attached to them. And the structure of ATP is you have 3 phosphates attached to an adenosine molecule. And between the second and third phosphate is a molecule of magnesium. It's very, very important. It's there for structural reasons. And it eases the ability of the kinase enzyme to cleave off a phosphate, which gives a spark of energy. But in that cleaving, magnesium is lost to the urine. And so that's the origin of the magnesium burn rate. Is when you're under stress, the body's looking for energy, it's looking for this phosphate, and it's willing to expend the magnesium in exchange for that phosphate. That's an acute stress.
Yes.
That's the first response to stress.
But acute chronic stress, like a divorce,
Right. Then we got a
is
completely different set of factors.
the burn rate goes way up.
Right. And what happens there is a wonderful article for the gearheads that might be listening to this. It's by Zamin, Z-A-M-I-N, Pira, P-I-R-A, it's all one word, Zamin Pira 2019. It explains how when we're in a state of fear, at an organic level, we get hypoxia, but at a cellular level, we get cancer.
All right, hold on for a second. So hypoxia is lack of oxygen?
So lack of oxygen, but there's actually 3 forms of lack of oxygen.
Okay.
So we can be on top of Mount Everest,
Yeah.
It's
Right.
altitude.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's just not in the environment.
It's not in the air.
Yeah.
It's not there. Oxygen is missing. There's a second form of hypoxia called, it's okay, it's called pathogenic. And so the immune system has the ability to convert oxygen into bullets to kill the pathogens. And we have white blood cells called neutrophils that use that oxygen in what's called an oxidative burst to kill the pathogen.
Okay.
It's one of the most important parts of our immune system. So that's pathogenic hypoxia. Then there's a third form that no one ever talks about, and it's called functional hypoxia. The conserved function of the cell doesn't work because copper is missing or copper is deficient. And so the way we make energy is we need to turn oxygen into water inside our mitochondria. And that creation of water is what releases energy molecules to go to another complex to become ATP. It's the most important, I think it's the most important chemical reaction in the body, is turning oxygen into water. And only copper can do that. It's the only element on the planet that enables that to happen. And under stress, especially under chronic stress, what happens is body's really smart, and it will release two hormones under stress, cortisol and adrenaline. And you know how powerful adrenaline is? Well, adrenaline is a supercharger for getting oxygen to the tissue, getting it into the mitochondria. But it comes with a price. Adrenaline is going to drive up iron, because iron's the waiter carrying the oxygen, and increased adrenaline, is going to increase the prevalence of iron in the tissue. That's not your friend. And that's why in acute settings, you have this adrenaline burst of strength and speed, but you're not meant to live in a state of adrenaline.
Right.
And that's what's happened. Society is living in this constant state of adrenaline rush. And then the other hormone, cortisol, everyone's heard of cortisol. Cortisol increases a very powerful protein called metallothionein. It's a metal-binding protein, and it's designed to bind up all the metals, but it has a particular affinity for copper. And so under chronic stress, and you've got the release of cortisol, there's a 4 to 5-fold rise of metallothionein, and it binds up copper 1,000 times stronger than it binds up zinc. And so suddenly under chronic stress, the body is binding up your copper and basically taking you offline. Basically, what the body is saying is, you can't seem to handle your situation. I'm going to take you offline. And that's the origin of so many chronic conditions, is this fearful reaction to their situation, feeling like they're trapped, not knowing what to do, and the body starts to respond with these very powerful stress hormones. And the practitioners have not been trained in stress management, don't know how the body responds with minerals, don't know how energy is made in the body, and it all begins to converge on that person's physiology.
So we have heard of magnesium. We understand, like, it's pretty common that people will talk about magnesium supplements in today, right?
Absolutely.
10 years ago, I think it was a lot more rare.
Right.
We've been in the magnesium world for quite a long time, and we
Right.
remember having many conversations with people that are like, what's magnesium? But now people are like, oh, yeah, magnesium, I get it. Now, copper, understand what copper is, but a lot of people may not even realize that copper is one of those minerals that our bodies needs.
Right.
And are there copper supplements? Like, how can we get it from food? You know, I don't think there's a lot of talk about copper.
No, there isn't. And the issue is there's a meme that runs medicine on the planet. You're anemic and you're copper toxic. And that message has been
Anemic meaning iron deficient.
iron deficient. So I was born in 52.
Yeah.
I grew up with Geritol ads.
Yeah,
Everyone's-
Geritol, the iron supplement.
Iron, poor blood.
Yeah.
Right? And what the funny story about that is that no one knows about the lawsuit that took place as soon as those ads started to appear on What's My Line or Lawrence Welk, all these old shows. There was the Geritol ad, but there was a lawsuit that was working its way through the court system for a decade. And what's fun is to learn that, in fact, it was a governmental agency that brought the lawsuit. You think it's like the CDC or the FDA, right?
Right.
No, FTC, Federal Trade Commission, because they knew it was a lie.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And it took them a decade to prove that it was a lie. And then when Geritol was taken off the market, which it was, the seal had been done.
Yeah.
Everyone knew they had iron poor blood. And so copper has been in the shadows of science and medicine for a century, quietly doing its thing. There's a network of people who know this Cupro truth, I call it, but it's not mainstream, and it really cuts against the grain of the conventional medical model, which is, as I was explaining in the coffee shop, you've got one gene, one protein, one drug. That's all we need. And when you begin to delve into the world of copper chemistry, it's a very powerful element that people don't know about, and a lot of confusion about it. And so people are very averse to it. They know that magnesium is their friend. People are very resistant initially. Oh, copper. But the irony is it was part of our ancestors' natural diet.
What are the foods highest in copper?
Shellfish, organ meats, leafy greens, collard greens, beet greens, the big leafy greens, nuts and seeds, amazing sources. All historically have been sources of copper.
Those are also conveniently high sources of magnesium.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, right. And so the thing is, you can take all the magnesium you want, but you're not going to stop the magnesium burn rate until you deal with the copper problem. That's the key. Magnesium it will cut through symptoms beautifully, but it will not stop the problem. That's the key.
Can you supplement with copper?
You can.
Let's just say you don't do well with nuts and seeds and leafy greens. Myself, I'm just speaking for myself, or asking for a friend.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, so I don't do a lot of those things, just for digestion, gut health, all of that.
Right.
So I would rather supplement with one if there is an option to.
That's right. So we have to put that into context. We're now 5 years out from a crazy time in the world, and so in 2020, I began to look at what was really happening and noticed a very powerful trend where people were taking high doses of ascorbic acid, high doses of vitamin D, and high doses of zinc.
And ascorbic acid is what's found in a lot of vitamin C.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
People think it's vitamin C. It's not.
Okay.
Right.
But
It's a molecule of a complex. Vitamin C is a complex. Ascorbic acid is the outer shell.
Exactly.
So all they think they're doing is something very healthy for themselves. They're like, well, let's load up on vitamin C, vitamin D, all the vitamins.
Right.
Let's drip it in the veins.
And so that triad, the ascorbic acid, vitamin D, and zinc, became known as the COVID cocktail. What most people don't know is that's the perfect triad to kill copper in the body. So when you're lowering copper, as soon as you start to affect copper inside the body, in any animal's body, it's going to allow iron to get dysregulated. And so I renamed COVID. COV stands for coppers vanished, ID irons dysregulated.
Ooh, that's good.
And that's based on research that goes back to 1928, March at the University of Wisconsin, and May at the University of Kentucky. And one of the highlights of the trip so far, there have been many, but one of the special highlights is there's a biochemistry lab at the University of Wisconsin where they discovered it was March of 1928 that copper was essential for heme and hemoglobin formation. The scientists involved in that research should have gotten a Nobel Prize, but because it was about copper, they weren't going to get that. And there's a brass plaque outside the biochemistry hall. So I have my picture with my arm around the brass plaque. And what's brass made out of?
It's copper.
Copper.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Don't hesitate. Come on.
Well, I had to think.
It seemed like a trick question.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, give me the bell. Ding, ding, ding.
So the thing is, people don't know how important copper is, and it's not taught in mainstream clinical education. And we don't need to get conspiratorial about it. It's just they don't know. It's just not part of the mainstream.
It's just not what's taught.
It's not what's taught. And what's emerged over the last 10 years is a greater awareness of, I mean, to some extent, I think I'm Johnny Appleseed. I've been connecting those dots for people. But you could go online now and you could find easily 25 different forms of copper.
Actually, I've been seeing a lot of, maybe on Amazon, maybe I'm getting targeted, but like the copper pitchers and copper glassware and things
Right.
like that. Is that enough to like give you a decent amount, or
You
what are your thoughts?
You have to be careful taking things out of context. So copper vessels are very popular in India.
Right.
There's a reason why they're popular in India, because they don't have the sanitation that we have here in the States. And so they would put their water in copper vessels. Copper is the original antimicrobe. It kills all pathogens, bacteria, fungus, virus, and parasites. And so these ancient civilizations knew that. I mean, they've been using copper back 5000 BC was when it was first recorded as a medicinal agent. It's like, wow, that's a long time. When did everything change about copper? First World War. That fast. Suddenly it became a problem. And now it's toxic. Really? And so one of the fun parts of this book signing is I've been able to grab little toy animals, sheep, pig, cow, and dogs, and point out I have a article, 75-page article on how important copper is to canine physiology. And yet, for the two-legged rats, it's toxic. And there's compelling research for sheep and for cats and for pigs
All
and
animals.
horses, all animals, all the research they've done on copper and the importance of copper in the animal world is legendary, except in medical school. And so what we've done is we've now identified 10 medical schools that have a veterinary school, and we're going to start to say, so do you all talk to each other? No, I mean, I had an occasion recently talking with a gastroenterologist, very well educated, MD, PhD, and I said, I'm just curious, do you know what Crohn's disease is? And he laughed. He said, of course I know Crohn's. He said, that's a third of my practice. I said, okay. I said, have you heard of Johne's disease? He said, yes. He said, dairy cattle get the exact same symptoms. I said, that's right. Exactly the same. They're just different labels, but they're the exact same metabolic process inside the gut. I said, do you know how vets cure Johne's disease? He said, I don't. And so I had a copy of my book, and I handed it to him. I said, they use copper. And he held the book out like, oh, I can't imagine you could write a whole book on copper. I said, well, John, if you would read that book, it would change your practice.
So did they use a supplement then for the animals, or?
They typically will use either copper bisglycinate or copper sulfate would be the two most typical brands for the animal world, especially like sheep farmers, if they're having trouble with conceiving, if their flock isn't growing fast enough, they'll just add more copper sulfate to the feed.
So just to go back to clarify, you're not a fan of the copper vessels to drink out of? You don't think it necessarily gives you more copper? It might be antimicrobial, but it doesn't necessarily help you supplement with it.
It's not going to increase your physiological dose of copper. There's going to be a microdose.
So they're not bad. It's just
not bad at all. No, I mean, it looks kind of edgy, but it's not going to change your physiology. And I think the challenge we've got, and this is a point of some dispute, but we live in a different world of farming. They're using farming chemicals now that are very different, and they're very powerful. And many of those farming chemicals chelate minerals. And so we just need to be aware of that. I know you've done a documentary on food, and it's really important for people to recognize how much food has changed, but there are steps that we can take to find the best food possible. But I think my personal opinion is we're at a point where we really need to supplement the minerals on a regular basis to augment the food that we're getting. I don't know that you can rely solely on well-intentioned regenerative farmers who mean well when there's glyphosate in the air. So that's what we're up against.
It's not just the farming that are our external circumstances. I mean, it's literally everywhere we are.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the first edition of the book was actually written that first year of COVID. And then when I realized what was really going on, that inspired me to inspire a copper supplement called Recuperate. And so that's available, and it's a unique blend of desiccated beef liver and spirulina, and got some boron in there, as well as turmeric, just to help soften the blow, if you will. And but there are other brands out there. Copper bisglycinate is a very popular form, but much of what's being sold doesn't have the cofactors. And I think that's what what we share is this need to get people to get all of the cofactors they need in order to get the full benefit of the
What are
nutrients.
the important cofactors of copper if someone's looking at a copper supplement?
Hands down, the most important thing they need in their diet is fat, especially retinol, vitamin A.
It's like animal fat.
And cod liver oil is probably one of the best forms of it. But the beauty of beef liver is it's one of the richest sources of both copper and retinol on the planet. The challenge is finding farmers that know that. And so you just have to be really mindful of that. And B vitamins are very, very important for the copper molecule. And so I personally think that copper is found in all of the B vitamins. That's, again, why beef liver is so important. All the B vitamins are in beef liver. And I think the magic and the mystery of Mother Nature is to make sure that these nutrient-dense foods, like the organ meats, have this array of nutrition that you can't dispute. It's just finding it in a format that's consistently good.
Or that you can tolerate if some people don't want to eat organ meats, you
know. I know. And at least you can find it in desiccated forms. You know, do you lose something? Possibly. I don't think there's been enough studies to measure before desiccation, after desiccation. But I think the
but you're not going
options
to
are
lose
out there.
all of it, at least.
No, not at all. But the options are out there now. I think we're at a very different level of understanding. And the only thing I would add to that, as it relates to the copper side of the house, is that we put emphasis or value on lowering the iron footprint in our body. And what's come to light for me in the last few months is a very important figure from Greece. His name was Constantine Adroctus, born in 1940, came to the States to get his bachelor's and master's at MIT, very smart guy. And he's the inventor of the first electric car on the planet, over in Athens. It was very successful. Not as big as Elon, but in his day, he was a really big figure. And when he was my age, he developed a condition called MDS, myelodysplasia syndrome. And it's a condition of the bone marrow can't produce blood cells fast enough. And his hematologist did something that no one had ever done before. Typically what they'll do is they'll just start infusing iron into that person to try to make up for the failure of the bone marrow. And for some reason, his hematologist thought, well, we're going to reverse engineer this. And he started using an iron chelator to pull the iron out of his body. And because Constantine was a very meticulous record keeper, he's monitoring all these applications of a very powerful iron chelator called desferoxamine, DFO. And after several months of these infusions of DFO and the irons coming out, suddenly his copper and ceruloplasmin popped up out of nowhere. He wasn't taking copper, wasn't taking ceruloplasmin. And suddenly it's like you can't ignore the fact that the copper that accumulates in our body suppresses the accumulation of iron in our diet suppresses the copper that's so important for our physiology. And he witnessed a recovery that no one had ever experienced before and lived for like 13 years after that procedure. And so it's just, what it's underscoring is our society is conditioned to always pop a pill. Oh, I've got this syndrome, I got to pop that pill. Yeah. And what Constantine is forcing us to think is it's multifactorial. We've known how important copper, we know how important copper is, but we also know how important iron donations are, phlebotomies. And I think
donating blood.
And I think what he's really emphasizing in his personal experience is that withdrawal of iron out of our tissue allows for the reintroduction of copper physiology to do what it's designed to do. And because we've grown up with fortified foods, fortified everything, when you really step back from your diet and look at how much iron we've been exposed to.
Iron Kids bread.
Exactly. Cereals, all of the different pastas and grains.
All thanks to Geritol, right? That idea of the blood is weak, so we got to fortify everything with iron.
Exactly.
But now we've basically flooded the body with iron.
Right. And so I would argue that the body becomes overwhelmed by that iron, overwhelmed by that oxidative stress. Yeah, we can stay on top of this magnesium burn rate, but we've got to lower the iron footprint. That's the key. That's the missing piece of the puzzle. We can introduce the magnesium, we can introduce the copper, and there's going to be benefit from that. But there's always going to be this grind of iron-induced oxidative stress that's just inherent in the aging process.
So Morley, one of the questions we always like to ask our guests is, when you were at your rock bottom moment, frozen shoulder in your case,
Yep.
How would you have given yourself a score, 1 out of 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best? Where were you on that ratio, on that scale?
In terms of where I was in my life?
Yeah.
I was about a 1.
Yeah. Felt like a 1.
That's pretty rock bottomy.
Yeah. It was pretty rock bottomy. It was definitely rock bottomy.
I think maybe the record is a -1,000,000, someone said.
Yeah,
once.
right. Yeah.
And now that you have the phoenix that has risen from the ashes,
right?
Where are you on that same scale most days today?
Probably somewhere between a 9 and a 9.5.
That sounds great.
Yeah. No, is it realistic to think you can get to a 10? We live in a kind of challenging world now.
Yeah.
Well, to stay at a 10 all the time would be probably impossible. But
I came across a very interesting interview, and this woman said, the goal in life is to be content. She said, you will have moments of happiness, but learn to become content. I'm very content.
That's really
I really am. And so I think there's a certain sense of self, certain sense of confidence that comes with that. Having helped a lot of people, having learned a lot, being in a situation to have these types of conversations, and just share that there are answers out there. It just takes time to tease them apart. But I think we're raised in this society where we're expected to be happy all the time. That's not realistic. Be content, and those moments of happiness will populate. And just recognize them when they take place.
Right. I mean, if you're happy all the time, you kind of lose appreciation for the moments when you're feeling super happy, right? I mean, it's always the
yin yang.
The yin yang. Yes.
That's right.
Another question we always like to ask is, if you were to write a book about your life, what would the title of that book be? And I want to honor the fact that you brought in your book today, Cure Your Fatigue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is your second edition coming out. Cure Your Fatigue, the root cause and how to fix it on your own. Right. This is now available, I think. By the time this episode is published, it'll be available on Amazon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Is this the title of the story of your life, or would there be a different title for your story?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. Thank you. My wheels are racing to respond. I think it would be something with a tagline around resilience. I've learned to be very resilient. And one of the important figures in my life, of course, mom, right? Can't live without our mom. They're not perfect, but they're really special people.
Yep.
She taught me a lot of things, but one of the most important things she taught me was, she says, Morley, just make sure you get up one more time than you got knocked down. And she was all about resilience. And again, she was alcoholic, chain smoker, had all sorts of emotional problems, but she made sure I knew that message. And she also taught me that, she says, don't tell people about the birthing pains. Show them the baby. That's what they want to see. They want to see the baby. And I remember there was a very fateful moment when my dad left home. We won't get into all the who struck John around that, but he was a manic depressive with schizophrenia, and he ran away from home. Yeah. And I remember standing there when my mom was telling a joke with a neighbor. And the neighbor said, "Oh, Jane, how can you laugh at a time like this?" And my mom quit back. She said, "Would you rather see me cry?"
Yeah.
And so those experiences really affected me that, yeah, we can have tough times, but it's all about bouncing back. And I think that our physiology is perfectly designed to do that if it has the right minerals. And you can't bounce back if you don't have magnesium. You can't bounce back if you don't have the copper. You can't bounce back if you don't have the right vitamins and minerals in your body. And so that's why it's so important for people to realize that we've got to eat real food. And we've got to deal with our emotions because we're always going to have setbacks. And there's a process you can go through to release the emotions and release the fear that you're stuck or whatever the dynamic might be. But it really comes down to we need to be resilient. And to me, the quotation that is most powerful comes by way of Mark Hyman when he's talking about stress. Stress is the body's inability to make energy for the mind to respond to its environment. That's resilience. And that's what this whole journey through life is. As long as we're alive, we're dealing with stress. It's good to be above ground, right?
Yeah.
And so we're always going to have stressors in our life. But the key is making energy to respond to those challenges. And that, I think that's so important, is getting people to realize that, curing your fatigue sets the stage for you to be resilient, to respond with ability. So
That's amazing.
On that note, that was fabulous and so insightful. And just as a reminder, we'll put all of the links in the show notes as well. But rootcauseprotocol.com, you can find the starts and the stops and more about Morley Robbins. You can
Cure
also
Your Fatigue.
get a copy of
Now
the book.
available on Amazon.
Yes, highly recommended.
and Barnes and Noble. You can go right
And
into
Barnes and Nobles, folks.
yes, for the physical set.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for being on the Rock Bottom podcast.
This
today,
is
Morley.
great. Really appreciate
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. It's great.
This episode of the Rock Bottom Podcast is brought to you by Jigsaw Health, a family-owned, Arizona-based nutritional supplement company. Every formula is made with clean ingredients that are third-party tested to ensure that what's on the label is in the bottle and nothing else. Learn more at jigsawhealth.com.
Do you have a health horror story? We're always looking for stories that will inspire others, so please use the link in the description to apply to be on our show. Finally, if this episode resonated with you, then please like and subscribe. It really helps others to find our show, and we want to help spread the word. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, so thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next show.